There we are. Hey everybody, Jonathan Broadbent here, your host of UnWoke.Academy. Boy, do we have a lot to unpack today. We have a detailed conversation about S&P 500, the markets, what that actually means, and all sorts of stuff. We have been setting the stage for this conversation for, got to say, about 4 years. So there's a lot to unpack. Bear with me. We're going to go through some fairly detailed stuff, but I'm going to make it bite-sized. Or if I don't, call me on it. Ask me questions. You can comment and ask questions on, what are we live on now? Rumble, X, YouTube, Facebook, and Substack. Substack works a little bit differently. I actually have a separate camera and mic set up for that one. If there's a way to incorporate it into the software that I use for main live streaming, I haven't figured it out yet. But on any of those platforms, if during the course of today's discussion I say something that jars your memory, prompts a question, makes you wonder, or is unclear, call me on it. That's why we go live. That's why I initiate these types of conversations. That is to answer your questions. We run UnWoke.Academy to get information out. We need to do a number of different things simultaneously. I want to get you out of harm's way into good stuff and hopefully thriving. We want to do the funding of Make America Great Again, defund the woke, and let's invest wisely. Let's put our money where our mouth is. If you are MAGA or Make America Great Again, that's what that stands for. I think everybody knows that by now. If you're America First, if you believe in the middle class, even if you're sort of middle to moderate and believe in all the things that Western values portend, like free markets, capitalism, a business entrepreneurship, etc., then this is the conversation for you. Because if we don't fund it, it will never happen. What we've seen, I'm going to give you some Cliff's Notes, and then I'm going to give you some pointers in some previous episodes and things like that to help this conversation take shape. Because when you talk about the markets, I'm going to air quote that can mean different things to different people. And if you've ever, this is pretty much everybody above the age of like 5, if you've ever watched mainstream legacy news or listened to NPR on the radio, you've probably heard the markets were up today, or the markets dropped and the markets were down today. And usually it's accompanied with some somber music. If the markets are down, I can actually hear it. I've heard enough through the years of NPR and things like it. That whole shtick, when they come on legacy media and try to convince us that the markets are up or the markets are down, what does that actually mean? How many people pause to wonder, what do they mean by that? Typically, and not universally, but for the most part, we've fallen into a sticky spiderweb trap of allowing legacy media, Wall Street, globalist banks, whatever, the icky cabal, to convince we the people that the S&P 500 represents the markets. Well, that is complete and utter nonsense. And it's nonsense that might have proven harmless and just sort of a representative notion of what investment markets or funding vehicles actually look like. except that it's been so ridiculously, egregiously, and broadly overtaken by bad actors. And I'm going to get into the details of what I mean by that in just a moment. It's been so overtaken and manipulated that now it is just what I refer to as the globalist bubble. And in order to put things into context, well, two things simultaneously. What do I mean when I say that it's a globalist bubble and it's been overtaken by bad actors? The first thing to know is the purpose of investment markets. Yes, it's true that indirectly or directly, our 401k or IRA or whatever that stockpile of cash that you've built up that you're saving for retirement, unless you park it in something like a CD or bank account or whatever, and I'm not recommending that, unless you do that and just completely keep it away from markets or investments, the investment objective, the reason that markets exist, or what we call capital markets, is to fund companies. And if you do it well, you participate in the growth of those companies. So when you think about banks, banks do lending and they lend with intended profit. Capital markets are very similar, or should be. You picking an array of companies that you believe in and you want to participate in the growth of those companies. That, at its basic level, is the way that markets were designed to function. And it used to be that there were lots of small community banks, regional banks that would do lending that would help companies to get off the ground, or if they wanted to expand or merge or buy another company or dedicate some money to research and development, they could go to the bank, or they could go public and collect public money to fund that operation. Well, pause for a minute and think about what that means to you. If you're saving for retirement in your wherever, IRA or even a brokerage account or 401k, the plan was for you to participate in those companies. And hopefully, over time, we have a vibrant economy. And that's not just US, but lots of people, especially associated with MAGA and America First and all that, are keenly focused on America, at least right now. But still, there are great companies that really need operating capital. They need cash in order to grow and thrive and be that next new thing. And even very, very large companies, ongoing, they consistently need money. They need cash flow in order to be able to thrive and continue to grow. Well, the S&P 500 is this tiny, tiny little sliver of that. It's a handpicked, I shouldn't say handpicked, it is a very small group of all those companies that are available to invest in. And I'll just use some round numbers. So let's ballpark things. These are not exact. The S&P 500 number is exact, but let's just say that there are 15,000 US-based companies that you might invest in through public trading. And there are all kinds of different ways that you might invest in. They do all kinds of different things in different markets, and they're different sizes. And some of them have very compelling stories, and they should be at least on your radar and of interest to you, should be interested in participating in that. And for some people, starting a long time ago, they didn't have the time, the interest, the aptitude, the wherewithal to do any of that research and figure out which are the good companies, which are the bad companies, where should your money be invested. And so gradually and then rapidly, we, the people, we took our hands off the reins. We gave that authority to primarily mutual funds. And what you're doing with a mutual fund is you're giving that authorization. You're telling some manager somewhere, I don't know what's good or what's bad. You do the decisions for me. You decide when to sell, when to buy, what's good, what's bad. And many of them, and especially explicitly, things that are based on an index like S&P 500, they've migrated into a ridiculous amount of sameness. And instead of doing research and figuring out what's good or what's bad, or when to buy, or looking out for harm on your behalf, or what might present a loss to you, many of them adopted instead to look at the woke stuff. They started looking years ago at environmental, social, and governance, or ESG for short. They started looking instead at critical race theory, which has been rebranded recently as diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all sorts of stuff like it. So instead of looking out for you and your best interests, many of mutual funds and the things like them decided instead it's easy to just sort of smokescreen the public and throw up this veneer of action where you have to put your fist in the air, that the climate action and equity and things like that, which are just it's I'm sorry to say, but I've studied this stuff. It's just pure Marxist propaganda. But even if you don't agree with me, everyone out there, anywhere on the political spectrum, social spectrum, whatever, will absolutely agree that if you give your money, I don't care if it's $1,000, if that's meaningful to you, or $10 million, whatever you've got, if you've worked to amass that money and you hand it off to somebody else and tell them, you make those decisions for me, I want you to decide what's good and what's bad and make the right moves. If you find out that they stopped making moves and instead just replaced the metrics, what we in the industry refer to as fundamentals, and stopped looking at the fundamental pluses and negatives of companies and where to invest, and instead ended up going into a parade of woke sameness. That's a little breadcrumb for you. That's actually an episode that I did a while ago, Parade of Woke Sameness. And actually, so is Globalist Bubble, where I lift the hood on a vast array of some of the most funded mutual funds out there. And what I show is that overwhelmingly, most, I'm not sure I can say most, the ones that I've researched, and that's a lot of them, have ended up invested. It means your money. They're taking your money and they're all ending up with somehow, interestingly, the exact same answer, which is about 40-ish companies. And they're all the ones you've heard of. And they have so much money right now, they don't know what to do with it. They've basically just sucked up all of the capital markets, all of the money that should be going to fund business enterprise. They've sucked it up and made it disappear, suffocating small business venture, mid-sized growth and expansion, virtually everything. And it's been a double negative. There's a little doom and gloom, but then I'm going to get back to the positive, and it's awesome. You're going to stick around for this because I've got really amazing numbers to share with you. But as they've done that, they have those small number of companies, and you're talking Apple, Microsoft, Meta, Nvidia, all those ones. They have so much money. They would. I've said this before, only half jokingly. They would have to find another planet full of humans to sell their product to justify where their price is right now, or maybe 5 new planets. They basically just sucked up all the money and just crushed the capital markets. And that's horrible and it's terrible, but it's also a bubble. So, and I'll continue to argue that to my dying day. There are still people who are like, well, Nvidia is $10 trillion a share, whatever they are now. Maybe it'll go to $20 trillion a share. And it's just, I just have to rub my head, and it's just makes my brain hurt to think that people still think in these terms. And it's crazy because um, I've said this before, don't hold it against me, but a lot of my experience and understanding, the connections that I have, the wherewithal, and the understanding comes from the fact that I worked on Wall Street. I left Wall Street years ago to oversee and report on Wall Street. In short, my background, my expertise is in institutional finance, I work in a niche within finance, but most all of it I've been exposed to. I have friends all over the board. And so over the past couple of years, as I've worked through the equations and I've looked through the mutual funds and I've lifted the hood and I've reported on this, at many points, I think to myself, this can't be true. This can't possibly be this bad. Don't we have some competent professionals somewhere that are doing differently or looking at this through an objective lens instead of just simply allowing all money to flow into, oh, or it's already a bubble and overfunded? So I've lost track of the conversations, hundreds and hundreds of conversations with friends all across the spectrum in the world of finance. I actually sent out a request for information last year, 2024, to many of those managers. And just because of where I sat and what I did and the connections that I had once upon a time when I worked on finance in finance on Wall Street. And at the time, I was, not to toot my own horn, but I'd climbed the ranks pretty far and had enough connections and enough clout that I built contact with a great number of managers and firms out there. So many of those ones that you've heard about, you may watch them talk on whatever, CNBC. And I know a lot of those people. And actually, many of them are lovely people. They're very friendly. Some of them at various points in my career have been friends of mine. I'm not going to take shots at individuals, or may occasionally take shots at a few individuals. But last year, when I sent that RFI out, the request for information, I made it very open ended. And I said, I want you, as a money manager, managing however many billions of dollars you manage on behalf of other people, to either explain your justification if you're using ESG and DEI and critical race theory. That what's the other one? If you are kowtowing to the corporate equity index, that's I've covered that before behind the scenes. That's the lever that big money uses to force corporations and money managers into taking woke action, which is very harmful. You've seen stuff like just collapsing market price. The stock prices of these companies when they go woke, they end up crushed. So I asked these money managers in very polite, very professional terms, if you're using this stuff instead of fundamentals, explain it to us. What do you see? What are the metrics? What are the issues that you are trying to solve for instead of investing simply on behalf of your investors? And if you're and put another way, if you're investing money for some sort of social good, oh wait, I have to put my fist in the air. Social good. You're going to create a social hoorah. You're going to fight the power. Going to, social good. If you're investing billions of dollars for that instead of profit and funding corporations, even if they're uh, helpful corporations, whatever, how are you defining this fundamental shift in how you occupy your professional time? How are you justifying, you the money manager, the mutual fund, whatever? How are you defining this change in what you are presenting as your product? Or if you're not doing the woke stuff, if you're not incorporating that, if you're not using it, then will you go on the record telling the public that you don't use that stuff and you instead just simply stick to the tried and true fundamentals, which is all the measurable stuff? It's management team, cash flow, what's called EBITDA, that's earnings after taxes, basically, and the research and development, market share, measuring your competition in markets, all that stuff. So those things are quantifiable. Those things are measurable. You can know what a company is doing, and you can look at their management team and you can decide, I like that company and I want some of the money to go there, or I don't like that company and I don't want my money to go there. It's really as simple as that. But these mutual funds, and that's, I make the argument, most all of them, especially the big names, they appear to have just stopped doing any of that. Pardon me one second. I take a sip of water, keep my voice going. A little bit hoarse today. Here, bear with me. So, if instead of doing all of that, and it does, it takes money and time and research and work, but that's what you're paying them for. If they stop doing that, still collect the management fee, but instead say everybody everywhere should all be invested in the same basically 40 companies: Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Meta, Google, and a handful of other ones. If everybody on earth is supposed to put all their money into those, what happens to free market? Well, those handful of companies, if you're on the plus side of that, if you're to the good, then they do things like giving out an average $16.7 million stock bonus in, I think it was 2024. That was a news article. The chairman and CEOs and stuff, that's a sign of how much too much money they have. They don't know what to do with it. They're just sitting around in warehouses full of cash, just making, I don't know what they're doing. They're swimming in money, making bonfires out of it for all we know. So they just have soaked that money up, made it disappear from real markets, from other companies, the ones that people like me and most of my listening audience don't want to invest in. They don't have any money. They're cash starved. That's where the financial PMA comes in, and UnWoke.Academy. To bring everybody up to speed, I do see, great, this is terrific. We've got a great audience here on these 5 platforms we're broadcasting on. By the way, it looks like some new people have joined us. If you have questions, post them. If you want to post them here, I'll try to incorporate them into today's discussion. If for some reason you're somewhere where you can't post or make comment, or something occurs to you later, or if you watch a recording of this, email me at info@unwokeinvesting.com. Info@unwokeinvesting.com. I will get answers to your questions. I will make a point of it, and I will keep everybody anonymous. That's what I always do. And I will answer the question publicly so that anybody else out there with that same question gets the answer. But giving sort of broad brushstrokes to bring everybody up to speed, because we have, I will assume, some new audience. I left Wall Street many years ago in order to do what's typically referred to as fiduciary due diligence on managers. That's my bailiwick. So looking at managers and evaluating them, and due diligence processes for big public and private money, that's what I do. That's the institutional finance that got me recruited by Wall Street, and then I just thoroughly lost patience. Kind of, and in 2008, it led to me just getting so frustrated. I released this letter internally at a Wall Street-based firm that was like, "Why in the heck are you people doing this stuff? It's awful, and you shouldn't be doing this because it's not right, and I'm pretty sure it's not even legal, and it's awful. I don't want to be involved with it." And then they threatened me with lawyers and stuff, whatever. Um, but when I left there, I left with a knowledge and understanding of what needs to happen, and started kind of this drumbeat of public awareness and a lot of education. I've been all over the country, from Southern California up into Maine and Connecticut and down into Georgia, and most of the states in between. I've flown all over the place, training, teaching, coaching, talking to people, so all kinds of stuff, public utilities, union heads, governmental entities and organizations, nonprofits, for profits, corporations, hospitals, universities. That's what I've done for for decades now. I teach people how to look through and make sure that what they're negotiating is right. And I don't want to get into the weeds of all that, but um, that the reporting is done properly, that they have managers who follow through and do what they say they're going to do. So this is stuff. This is common for me, and it's instinct at this point because I've been doing it for so long. And when instinct kicks in, and I look at managers who are like, "Well, what we've always done." That's just completely right out the window now. And instead, we're going to social justice. Like, what? How? Just first of all, if you're managing $1 trillion, define social justice. What are you going to do? Does social justice mean that you're just going to take your $1 trillion that you invest on behalf of other people and put it in the same 40-ish companies that everybody on earth is all investing in? Because that's not actually due diligence. That's not actually any level of intelligence or competence. It's just that's negligence, malfeasance, and fraud and laziness. So that's where that request for information came in. I released it last year, and I got exactly 0 formal responses. I did get some phone calls. I got a couple of kind of off the record emails. I talked to a bunch of people who are very upset with where we've gotten and how far we've fallen as a nation and as the institution of capital markets and how they're supposed to be fed. But they're virtually none of them. They're very, very few, especially in the world of finance, who are willing to stand up and ask questions. And again, I've said this a number of times. I relate that or I equate it to the experiences that we had with doctors and hospital systems and big pharma and COVID. When COVID kicked in, there were just way too many doctors who were like, "What?" and just it jab all of my patients, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 times, jab them all with some experimental thing, or put them to violate all the existing known protocols and instead try these nefarious medical protocols. Sure. Okay. And there were a lot of them we've figured out now. They got paid big bonuses. Well, those doctors, most of them, it's my understanding, were afraid. They knew the writing was on the wall. They would lose their ability to practice if they asked questions. Well, the same holds true in the world of finance. A lot of these people, and I know a lot of them, and I had the opportunity. I saw that gold brick uh, path. I saw it. I saw all the people with private planes and multiple mansions and very, very high end luxury cars, maybe a couple of yachts and special yacht at their house in Miami, whatever. I know those people. I've worked with them and been invited into that world. I was actually more than invited. It was when I was recruited, it was insisted. That's the world I was supposed to go into and play in. It didn't fit well in that now infamous letter that I wrote, which was the beginning of the end. Um, that 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 was not for me. So I want to put this whole thing into a context that I hope makes sense. I'm a big fan of the actor Christian Bale. He's been in a bunch of things. He's my favorite Batman. I love those Batman movies with Christian Bale. Those are awesome. Christian Bale played the part of, I made it in my notes so I would remember his name, Michael Burry. Christian Bale played the part of Michael Burry in the movie The Big Short. If you haven't watched that movie, go back and watch it. I've seen it twice now. I actually have it on DVD. Yeah, I'm old school. I actually have a physical DVD of The Big Short. You should go and watch that because I'll tell you that character really, really resonates with me. There's a big part of the character that Christian Bale plays, of Michael Burry, that resonates. And I think that it's kind of me. I'm sorry to say, or maybe I'm not sorry to say, that the reason I'm going to go off topic here for a minute and come back again to The Big Short. But the reason I'm here and the reason that you see me and I started UnWoke everything, all of this, my career on Wall Street, all of it started with a conversation that took place when I was young. Somebody made the comment, made the observation of me from the outside that I have the ability to absorb and process mass amounts of complex detail. And add to that, I have at least some communication skills. I think I give myself a C on communications. I'm not great with people, but I try. But I do see people who are contemporary to me who really are awkward. And hopefully I'm not that bad. I try to not be a overly nerdy, cautious, a awkward type. Sometimes that comes out, and that's fine. You're gonna have to deal with that. I try to strike a balance. And actually, so by way of example, I brought along a couple of props today to illustrate my point, and hopefully this kind of right sizes your perspective of me and where I'm coming from. When I worked on Wall Street, I was recruited into work in what's called the bullpen. And it was during that time I learned that what I was recruited for is not actually what I was expected to do. They really just basically wanted me to attend sales meetings and sell whatever the product du jour was. Well, I didn't want to do that because my training and background and the thing I was recruited for is a very specific niche. And I was like, okay, well, that's the only thing that I'm going to do because that's what I'm good at. Not selling whatever thing that you guys figured out is profitable or whatever. I worked my way through in 24 months. It was 2 exhaustive, grueling years. If you've seen those Wall Street films and movies and those TV shows and everything, it's mostly all true. It's crazy. It's just absolute craziness in working your way through one of the Wall Street firms. What I did, it was a lot of travel, a lot of hard work. I was there 6.5 days a week for 2 years, basically lived there. And when I got to the end, this is a simple story to highlight um, me and hopefully gives you a better understanding of me. Um, when I got to the end, I was supposed to graduate, I'm air quoting that, and then become like a basically a full-fledged employee. And I'd run the gamut. I'd done all the things that were asked of me. I had fulfilled all the requirements over the 24 months, which is a rarity. Not many people do, but I did, and I was successful. And on the final month 24, when I'm supposed to come out, graduate, and become this full-time employee, I got notice from corporate that there were 2 pieces that were missing, that I was supposed to pass what's referred to as CFP1 and CFP2. If you've ever taken a look at the other side of the aisle from me, which is much more common and it's much more likely that you know that side, that stands for Certified Financial Planner. I know lots of financial planners. Actually, I think I like all of them. They seem like great guys and gals. So, on the personal financial planning side, they said that there are 7 modules in order to become a CFP, and they just decided I had to pass and certify in CFP1 and CFP2. Well, it's not my specialty, it's not my bailiwick, not my area of focus. I don't really know anything about that, and I didn't want it. But I was told it was hard and fast requirement, and somehow they'd missed it. And this is month 24. They gave me 2 extra months and said in month 25 and month 26, you have to pass CFP 1 and 2. CFP is something people take sometimes 3 years to work their way through and pass. This is textbook 1. This is CFP 1. They gave it to me on the first day of the month. Actually, I had to buy it. I bought this textbook. What's this one? Financial Planning and Process Environment. That's what this one is. And I knew zero. close to zero about any of this. I took this book, and on the very last day of the month, I took the exam and passed it. This is CFP2. This one is Fundamentals of Investments for Financial Planning. This is the second one, pretty much same size. What is this? I don't know, 1,000 pages, 600 something, whatever it is. And so I just crammed, and I don't know, 700 some pages. So you got about 1,600 pages of material there. Same thing. I crammed that, studied in month 2, and passed and graduated. And so I finally had covered all the things, and I did all the stuff that was expected during the 24 months. And then I did the extra 2 months and pulled off the miraculous. I crammed all that, and I retained that much information. My reason for bringing that up, it's not a hoorah me. I never really use that stuff, but I mean, those are heavy. I wanted to put them down, not to, don't leave them on my lap for the rest of the conversation. My reason for bringing that up is my perception of my job here, my role with UnWoke.Academy and Financial PMA is to go out there into the world and look at what's really happening and absorb as much detail, seek bedrock truth, and then report back to you. That's my job. And hopefully I can balance those two well. I can get the detail, I can absorb it in meaningful ways, and then prove to be a good communicator. If I don't do one or the other well, UnWoke.Academy doesn't do well, you don't do well, and we don't ever actually defund the woke. Which brings me into the positive, awesome stuff that's happening. One is, if you weren't already aware, it's because you're not supposed to know that on February 21st, Donald Trump issued something called the America First Investment Policy. Well, investment policy statements, investment policies, that's been my most of my career. Those things I know inside and out. And that finally gets back to, it pushes back on all those managers. Remember the managers that I told you I went out and asked them, request for information, define your processes. What is it you're actually do? What social ill are you trying to solve for with your green energy, whatever, sustainable fund? What does that mean? What does it actually mean? Because my job on behalf of anybody and everybody and people's money and investing world is to make sense of it. And if you can't define it, I'm going to assume you're lying and it doesn't exist. And it's made up, it's fiction, and it's a veneer, it's a fake label that you put on your mutual fund in order to attract money. And that's not okay. Then the other part of the equation is to come on to shows like this one, hopefully do a decent job of communicating to you what it is I've found out. That's all these programs. I'm just putting it all out on the table. That's my view. That's why I do what I do, how I do what I do, and the intention of the Financial PMA and UnWoke.Academy. So Trump released that investment, America First investment policy, and it says to the world, cut it out. Stop funneling all the money, virtually all of it, into a small number of globalist companies that hate us. They're working really hard to destroy America and the West and crush Europe, South America, America, you name it. Those companies, and many times we've specifically named BlackRock, there are issues with BlackRock for sure. And they're on our list of things to avoid, generally speaking. But it's not just BlackRock. It's many, many of those firms, as I've highlighted. Again, watch that parade of woke sameness. We shouldn't be putting blinders on and ignoring all of these great, potentially good, wonderful future companies that could take off and become the next new thing, or that are doing really well, but they need a little bit more cash in order to take the next step in the growth of their company. We shouldn't be ignoring them. And since regional community-based banking is all but dead in the United States, regulations killed them. We're it. We're the funding. We're the funding vehicle. So when you make your payroll deduct for your 401k, or you decide to do your annual or whatever, however frequently, your contribution to your IRA account, think about what that money is going toward. Are you plunking your money into Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Google, Meta, like virtually everybody else on earth? If so, why? Why not think about America first? Why not fund those companies? Spread it out and diversify those assets, those investments across lots of different companies. By the way, I'm first of all not a fan. I do not suggest trying to day trade. Don't try and time markets. Nobody does that well. And when it comes to the questions that I typically get, should I invest in gold or silver or crypto? The answer is sure, if that's part of what you want to do and it fits you and you've done your research, but build a portfolio. Do go back to what works. Our parents or grandparents or great grandparents, whatever, they did that back before the mutual funds took over everything and decided they convinced the world, hey, let us trust us. We'll do all the investment due diligence and everything, and we'll do the voting for you. We'll vote on the board and governance, and we'll make all the votes for you. Trust us. Just give us all your money and your votes, and we'll do everything on your behalf. That's failed. That's a failed experiment, almost universally. If you care about America and the West, and you're decided that you want accountability, transparency, true due diligence, and maybe you even want to participate in funding the new economy, the freedom economy, um, or just basic, sane, rational companies that aren't drastically inflated in price like that small handful. There's so much money. It's it's unsustainable. Talk about sustainable funds. They're quote unquote sustainable funds. The they're the opposite. You can't continue to tell me that every day. And again, I'm going to use another analogy. This is actually referencing an economist I listened to a couple of months ago, and I listen in on a lot of programs. In this one, there was an economist that made the comment: if you believe in the current stock price, the valuation of Apple, then you believe we will all drive Apple vehicles, live in Apple homes, wear Apple devices, and stream Apple services. I go one step further because, well, I'm a sci-fi fan. Um, I say if we believe the Apple price currently, we have to think that maybe there's another planet full of humans somewhere that we're going to sell their products to, because it's ridiculous. They're not really even making all that much effort that I see to develop any new products or services. They're just sitting around trying to figure out where the next $1 trillion should get spent, and buying up and absorbing and taking in. So they buy some new company. They can't spend it fast enough. There's so much money, which brings me to the concern. That's the globalist bubble element. If I'm right, and still waiting for anybody to show up to argue that I'm not, if I'm right, it's a bubble. And then people ask me, when do you think that bubble would be allowed to burst? Or when do you think it's likely that the bubble would burst? And my answer is just before the next midterm elections, 2026. I think we have until now, between now and 2026, to address the overvalued stocks that are represented in things like the S&P 500, and maybe consider focusing some of your investment efforts into great American companies and companies elsewhere, all over the world, that aren't woke, that aren't part of the globalist cabal, that are just simply doing the right things, developing good products, have good services, and they're tangible. You can see them. And here's an example. So the Private Membership Association, I developed that again as a response to the egregious data mining that I see from regulators and from Wall Street, the world of finances. If you think your smartphone is, I'm looking around for it, but I'm actually using it to live stream on Substack. If you think your smartphone is data mining you, you haven't seen finance. It's way worse than your cell phone or even K through 12 education. Oh, the data mining that takes place there of children is painfully awful. But we started the private membership association to try and eke out an environment where people can interact financially with hopefully the greatest degree of privacy possible. But in addition to that, that's where we're deploying. I'm personally working with, and we are a membership based association where we encourage each other and we talk about trades and we talk about companies and what's good and what's bad. And all this whole conversation is just, um, this is a snippet of the conversation that takes place in the private membership association. So, clarifying that, if you watch UnWoke.Academy, all the stuff that I put out there, all the detail, all the information, all the research, it's all public. You can go anywhere with it. If your spouse or brother-in-law or best friend, college or roommate or whatever, if they work in finance, or if you do your own finance and you do even online account for trading or something, great. Take everything I'm doing. It's all free. Take it. Go do your thing wherever you want to. If you don't have those resources, consider the private membership association. We'd love to have you. No requirements, all free until the private membership association. That is actually a paid subscription. That's how I plan to keep the lights on and keep episodes like this one going. Some number of people are going to join us at the private membership association, whoever that is. So there's your two avenues. You can take it, don't pay us a dime. Take everything that I'm doing, all the research, and go anywhere with it. Hoorah! I'm proud of you if you do, because that's how we fight back. That's how we fund the future that we want to see. It's how we defund the woke. It's how we take the money away and get it out of harm's way, for heaven's sakes. Get it out of all the stuff that's built upon the S&P 500. And sorry, I'm going to get back in a moment. I've got the latest numbers that I pulled from one of the members in the private membership association. But before I do, I want to finish my train of thought on the Big Short with Christian Bale. I brought it up, but I missed one important piece that I want to highlight. In that movie, he saw something and he started going around in it at first, just like me. At first, he was like, this can't be that bad. And he got people to go out and fly places and do research and look at the mortgage marketplace. And there was a concept in the United States that US mortgages were so solid, there was such bedrock, they were so secure, nothing could ever happen to them. And based on that, bad people kept layering bad things on top of them. You had collateralized mortgage obligations and you had derivatives that were built off of them. And you had some of them got levered up. There was so much leverage in them. There were like 20 or 30 times leverage. And then you had legislation that came in that weakened the mortgage marketplace. And lo and behold, 2008 happened. There were very few people in 2007 who even thought about the mortgage market as being vulnerable. I'm telling you, and the purpose of today's program is to tell you the S&P 500 it's absolutely vulnerable. It's beyond vulnerable. It's an inflated, ridiculous bubble. I've made that argument, and I'm still, again, I'm just going to keep saying over and over, I'm waiting for somebody to show up to try and argue that I'm wrong. Nobody does. Nobody will. I've volunteered. I've offered for years. My RFI that went out to all those managers last year was a perfect opportunity for any of them to come back and explain to me why, instead of doing due diligence and fundamentals, that they felt justified in steering preposterous amounts of money into the same small number of companies, overfunding them. So the similarities, and I may actually watch it a third time because over the past couple of days, I've gotten really stoked about this, The Big Short, and just what they went through and the similarities. Um, it's nearly identical in my book. It's another crumbling tower where I can point to it. I can see the the price to earnings ratios. I can see, sure, there are people out there and these paid mainstream legacy media broadcasts. It'll tell you that "Oh, sure, it's reasonable. You should probably even put more money into it. That the price to earnings ratio, oh, sure, that's reasonable." That I think that they would say that if it were, in, I don't know, 5 figures. If you know what price to earnings ratio is, that'll make sense. If not, then sorry. But the the notion that these people have just become derelict and they're not doing their jobs for you. They're not actually evaluating and doing due diligence. It's just mayhem and nonsense, and it's a bubble. I'm going to continue to argue that it's a bubble. So, what's the alternative? The alternative, I've had it up here on previous episodes. I've showed you in a list of portfolios that we've built of companies that we have confidence in, that have met our non woke screens, if you will, run them through a bunch of different metrics. And we publish information and data for lots of companies, and we call out the woke. I've done special focused things on Costco and what was the other one? Tractor Supply, and a whole bunch of them. All those companies that fought Twitter, now X, and tried to crush our First Amendment free speech rights. I did exposés on lots of those and who owns them. So I call out the woke, and I also we research and publish and report on the ones that we think are not woke. And the purest, easiest, simplest way to build a portfolio that you know isn't funding the woke is getting into a stock portfolio. There's some managers out there that are good. A couple of them have been guests on our program. Like that whole program we did where Justin Bernier from National Security Index was a guest. Go back and watch that one. It's a great episode that focuses on not funding our enemies, like the Chinese Communist Party and their military expansion. So go back and watch that episode. So in one of those that I listed, and I just showed for one particular member of the Private Membership Association, the Financial PMA, for this woman who decided that she wanted to come and join us as a member, we started trading on her account. Actually, I've got the spreadsheet on my desktop here. We started trading in her account on October 8th of last year. So not even a year. October 8th of last year, we put the trades in on 40, there are 40 different companies we bought a little bit of in different increments. I see a question. I will be right to that in 1 second. In this portfolio, I've said this a bunch of times, of keeping track of what happens in this one portfolio. I picked this one because I actually personally was involved in this one. The woman who wanted the trades had no experience and was very, very uncomfortable with doing any online trading or anything. So for the first trades, I actually personally helped her. And we put the trades in on October 8th, 2024 through July 1st, uh, through July 31st, just a few days ago. The average gain in that portfolio was 51.38%. Her long-term unrealized gain, her gain on her investment, is 41.05%. The reason there's a difference there is we didn't do the same amount of cash into each investment. Some had a little bit more, some had a little bit less, based on the share price and number of shares that we wanted to buy. So her unrealized gain, the amount that her investment portfolio has gained in 9 months, is 41.05%. If you agree with me that the S&P 500 is fiction, it's fictional, and it's fiction with tons of stuff built off of it, like these index funds and indexed annuities and all of this stuff, then that is that's an environment where, in my book, it's not ripe for collapse. I think it has to. And I think personally that the political capital, the crushing political blow to let that collapse just prior to the midterm 2026 elections, and then try and hang that albatross around Trump's neck and call it the Republicans and say, oh, the Republicans did these terrible things and look at their tariffs crush that. That's complete predictable lie that I think is coming next year. So if facing the difference between trying to use the S&P 500 as if it isn't fiction, as if somehow you think that that's just going to continue to go up forever, like that, like in 2007, people in the mortgage markets thought, then the alternative is to watch the episodes where I talk about how to build your own investment portfolio, build a ditch the mutual funds, build direct investing, and in doing so, you avoid those management fees from the mutual funds. Get rid of them. And for some people, you can get rid of excess advisory fees. If you got an advisor who's doing the same thing, they're just hanging out to put you into mutual funds that then charge a fee that then put you into the same small cabal of globalist companies, same as everybody else. Why pay all those layers of fees? Why not get rid of those? By the way, there are great financial advisors out there. And we actually struck a deal with Matt and Drew. Watch those episodes where I've interviewed Matt and Drew. We now actually have a commercial that Matt and Drew have made. Stay tuned for that. I haven't released it yet. But Matt and Drew over at Inspire, we have a deal. If you end up liking them and work with them, some amount of whatever they make comes back to fund UnWoke, which is awesome. There's no obligation. First thing they're going to do for you for free is do an impact report, show you the impact that your portfolio is having. Go get that for free. No obligation. They want the opportunity to meet some of our UnWoke audience. But wherever you go, financial advisor or no financial advisor, know what you own, know that you're not funding the woke. So let me see. I'm not sure what this means. So there's a person that has posted a series of names. I actually am unfamiliar with these names. Could you please comment again and maybe put that in the form of a question? I'm reluctant to post these names not knowing what they mean. So that is a call to the person. Actually, I don't know which platform this is coming from, but just about 6 seconds ago, somebody posted a list of names. Please clarify. In the meantime, I do suggest going to whatever your streaming service is and go watch The Big Short, because a lot of understanding the things that I brought out in today's discussion, I think they will probably seem clearer, and if nothing else, an understanding of how I view my role in this whole conversation. Know that when I watched that character that Christian Bale played, the Michael Burry character, I see a lot of myself in that. And I see a lot of the 2008 mortgage issue in things like what's happening now with the S&P 500. It seems like it really does. It feels like history repeating. And there is a big part of me that, in those scenes where he's just sort of waiting for the shoe to drop. And people are asking him, like, okay, we keep predicting a market collapse. When is it going to why didn't it happen? And he just kept telling him, it's going to happen. And he did his research. He kept researching. He stuck to his guns. I don't want to give too much away for anybody in the audience who hasn't seen the movie, but go watch it, because I feel that's where I'm sitting right now. I definitely feel that's where I'm sitting. It's only the difference is I don't play the drums. Maybe I should learn to play the drums. I see. So there's clarification around the post. Thank you for that clarification. So with that said, I don't see any questions coming up. Let me double check. Wow, we've got a terrific audience. Thanks everybody for coming in and joining the discussion today. Please do share this out. Click the like button, make comments, share it We need to get this message out to more people. The resources, I put tremendous everything. I've put everything I've got into UnWoke.Academy. All my time and energy, my money, my heart, my soul. This is all free. It's for you to act upon. So, and get people talking. If people are wherever they are, just please get them talking and get them aware of the things that I'm bringing up. And again, for probably the fifth time during just today's episode, I encourage people to challenge me on this. If you think that I'm wrong, challenge me. Come back and ask me questions. Even if you do it privately. Even if you are watching this, I'm issuing a public guarantee, a public decree. If you're watching this and you completely oppose me politically, if you are, for instance, very far left, very liberal, and you want to give me a question, I guarantee you publicly, I will not reveal your name. I will keep you confidential. I'll answer your questions head on. I will publish them and keep your information, your identity, private and confidential. I'm challenging anybody to challenge me on this. So again, kind of like the character in that movie, The Big Short, as the time clicks on and people are wondering like how can the mortgage market collapse? And he sat in confidence, knowing he'd done his research. I should stop there. I don't want to give too much away. Go watch the movie. That's the position that I'm in right now. And tell people every Wednesday at noon Eastern time, I plan to hold this discussion and ones like it. Follow UnWoke.Academy, comment, like this, and share. In the meantime, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.